My name's Saw. I believe most of you guys were on here yesterday. I'm the CEO of the Communities Economic Development Fund, and welcome to day 2 of our online forum. Um, just a few housekeeping items. Aside from the mics, just be aware that of course we have our chat box. That if there's any questions or comments, feel free to use our chat box, and Leanne from our office will be keeping track of those comments. Also, if anyone has any email addresses or anything that they want to share with other people in the forum, by all means you can have that put in the chat box as well. Also, we've been getting some queries about getting copies of uh, the presentations that were on Monday, and we will be having all those presentations as well as our videos on our website at CEDF.mb.ca, and that will be available towards the end of next week. So for anyone who wants to get copies of those, they will be available. So in saying that, once again, I want to welcome everyone. We had a great showing on Monday. And just as a reminder for anyone who wants to participate in the balance of our forum that will be running till the end of the week, you just have to email Leanne Brown at lbrown@cdf.mb.ca to get for that. And also, as I said, if everyone can shut off their mics. I know we'll be continuously reminding everyone, I'm sure, throughout the rest of the forum on that. In saying that, just a reminder as well for the forums for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they will be starting at 10 a.m. I know for Monday and today we start at 1:30, so just a heads up. So in saying that, I just want to introduce our two speakers for this afternoon. Of course, the theme is growing the digital media industry in the North. First, we'll have Kristian Roberts, Nordicity city's managing partner. Kristian has over 10 years of consulting experience with the creative industries and a deep knowledge of Canada's interactive industries. Kristian has become a recognized expert in the digital media. He has advised clients in Clune, but of course not limited to the Canadian Interactive Alliance, the City of Mississauga, Calgary Economic Development, uh, Telefilm Canada, Ontario Media Development Corporation, New Media Manitoba, Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, the Government of Newfoundland, and the Government of Canada on the games industry and how it might be supported. Through several recent engagements, Kristian has also worked with the games industry in several areas to position the games industry to attract inbound investment. Kristian is also a leading expert in the design and implementation of survey tools, particularly as they relate to obtaining data from the creative industry companies. Also, we're right after Kristian, we'll have Dan Blair, who's the CEO and founder of Bit Space Development. Daniel's focused on building innovative focused research projects for clients exclusively from, as he says, from planet Earth. Daniel's an award-winning entrepreneur and software designer. Throughout initiatives and organizations, Daniel has been directly involved in the interactive digital media and entrepreneurship ecosystem by sitting on boards and committees that align with a singular goal: to create the best possible ecosystem for hacking and building. Daniel is well known for being a thinker, math scientist, and of course, a lifelong learner. So if you guys would please, well, welcome Kristian and Daniel, and we'll first start with Kristian.
All right. Thanks. Thanks everybody with your virtual clapping. Oh, don't you clap, John. You might have to talk. All right. Let me just get my presentation up here. Hopefully this will bear with me for only 1 second. I gotta make the screen share go proper. And there we go. So, as you all already know, the CEDF, one of the strategic plans or strategies that they're developing is, or have developed, is in interactive digital media for Manitoba's North. So in the next sort of 10 minutes, I'm going to take you through what that, where we are in the middle of that strategy, and maybe somewhat unlike the other strategies, the opportunity, one of the opportunities that you're going to have this afternoon is to feed directly into what that strategy might end up looking like. So, I know Ryan will take you through all of that when you get into your sessions and the structure of that conversation, but this will lead directly into that strategy. So just as you see on this slide, Nordicity is partnering with New Media Manitoba, and we're going to get, who are those two parties? So Nordicity, as I was alluded to in my intro, we do policy, strategy, and economic analysis for, the same people that Dan does, people on the planet Earth. But we're really small. We're kind of a small shop. We focus particularly on sort of arts and culture, telecommunications, and really small, sort of narrow niche. And we've been working with interactive digital media companies in Manitoba since 2011. So undertaking, a couple of different sort of census operations to figure out what that industry is and how to help it grow. Now, I would be honest and say that most of that experience, before this engagement, is centered in Winnipeg. So this is a really interesting opportunity for us to sort of reach out beyond where the usual conversation is into where there's a lot, and find a lot of opportunity in doing so. That being said, we do work, across Canada's north, in all territories and provinces that have a north, to really, and a lot of times it's around the same topic, which is how to allow digital tools and technologies to enable other things, be that social, economic development, economic opportunity, just connecting with the world, or just making your cell phones work, because of course we do have a telecoms practice. So New Media Manitoba, who is actually represented on this call. So please, John, if you want to add something, please do. But New Media Manitoba is kind of a unique organization. They're partnering with us on this, with Nordicity on this strategy. They're unique in that they are both a sector council responsible for training in Manitoba's digital industries, as well as a trade association for those industries, for which they provide business opportunities like market access programs or advocacy, both to provincial, municipal, and federal governments. New Media Manitoba's members include, but are not limited to, people that make video games, apps, web design and development, the VR, AR, and XR types of things that Dan makes, and we'll talk to you about in a minute. Transmedia, e-learning applications, digital health, interactive installations, back-end payments, which aren't on here, but are a big deal. Delivering food to people's houses, not on here, but a big deal. Again, all of these things are the types of products and services created by New Media Manitoba's members. As a sector council, they are involved in a number of initiatives, some of which involve the North through partnerships with organizations like the Frontier School Division and the University College of the North. As an organization, it is, as I've been told, New Media Manitoba has been building up this sort of momentum of getting through the North for the last sort of 3 or 4 years, but are really looking, as I mentioned, Nordicity is as well, looking at the North as, a place of opportunity where, particularly as we all think to we've all sort of been remote working as we are in this very call, but what opportunities does that allow for an industry like interactive digital media, which is sort of by definition digital. those opportunities are meant to give students opportunities to learn about job opportunities, give students, new knowledge and skills, or support, students, faculty, and staff, and community partners in developing, those types of partnerships. I should also point out, as a trade association, they do a lot of things, including one-on-one training, market access programs, business-to-business programs, experts in residence, and a variety of other things that have acronyms. So all of that to say is that New Media Manitoba is a very active industry association, so active that they're helping to develop a strategy for interactive digital media in the North. All right, John didn't interrupt me, so I'm going to assume that that's good. All right, so as you all know, because you're here, Nordicity and New Media Manitoba are currently working on a strategy for interactive digital media in the North. And I just thought I'd give you just a brief understanding, as I alluded to earlier, where we are in that process. I mean, basically, we're as you can see here, we've developed a strategic framework trying to understand what's important, and we've completed sort of a couple rounds of interviews to try to understand how the North is doing against the sort of benchmarks or pillars of strategy that we identified in the first part of that process. Really, kind of pretty basic sort of strategic development. And we've come up with a number of strategic actions that might help to address issues and concerns or build on opportunities found in those in the sort of areas of the strategic framework. Which is perfect timing for today, because we've thought of some things, but maybe you as a combined group will also think of some things, and maybe you'll think of things that we didn't think of, or think of things that we did think of and think that they're terrible. So those are all great outcomes for today. I'm sure this question is now in your mind. What the hell is he talking about, interactive digital media? And I've alluded to it before, and I just put up this pretty long definition of what New Media Manitoba defines interactive digital media as. But suffice to say that what we think about when we think about interactive digital media is something where the user interacts in some content, and that content either connects them to other users or allows them to change the content itself. So you end up, so that's what sort of distinguishes it from, let's say, simply watching a show on Netflix. You may watch the show on Netflix, and with the exception of those fun interactive, like the Minecraft show, you're not interacting with the content. You're simply consuming it, albeit on a digital platform. So it's really the nature of interactivity which separates interactive digital media from other things. It is, however, not like there is no standard definition. There's no government definition. It's defined differently in every jurisdiction that it's found. So as we looked as part of the strategy to what interactive digital media might mean in Manitoba's North, we can look at it to see what could it mean. Could it be, as an example, the use of interactive digital media either in, let's say, forestry companies or companies that serve forestry companies? And I think that might be, that's a real and tangible example of things that are actually happening. But really, suffice to say that, there is a user, there is a piece of content, and that piece of content either connects that individual through to other users or allows them to interact with the content directly, or I should point out. So what does this actually look like in the province as a whole? So the last time that we did a study on this was in 2017, so we were collecting data from 2016. So it's a little while ago, and things have grown. But at that point, there was about 65, 70 companies operating in the province, and with a good chunk of them, 20% of them, making a bunch of at least $1 million in revenue. So they're not, there are at least a handful, or a little bit more than a handful of I would say sort of more robust companies. They had and that's only continued to grow since then. They were quite varied. I mean, for not a large jurisdiction like Manitoba, has quite a large variety of different types of interactive digital media companies, which is in part, of course, why New Media Manitoba's definition is so broad. Again, just reflecting the reality of the circumstances in which it finds itself. And unlike many jurisdictions that talk about this term of interactive digital media, it's not directly focused on video games, or it's not overly focused on the development of video games, which might be in your mind the sort of easiest to wrap your mind around digital media product is a kind of video game. But it more has to do with a variety of other things, like the types of things that Dan will talk to you about in a few minutes. They're also focused, again, on business-to-business sales, which is a little bit distinct from what interactive digital media looks like in maybe other jurisdictions that are more focused on creating commercial sort of consumer products, like be they apps or games. What the industry in Manitoba does have very much in common with industries around the world is that interactive digital media revenue is generally export revenue. So it's generally inbound revenue from other places, because if you kind of think about the products themselves, they're digital in nature. And, again, kind of riffing on Dan's intro, it doesn't really matter where you are. You can kind of, because the product doesn't have, in most cases, a physical instantiation, it's easier to develop client bases from around the planet. And in 2016, that was 80% of all revenue coming from outside of the province, with the largest market for that being other places in Canada. So, selling to Toronto or Vancouver as an example. All right, so that's kind of the groundwork. Now I'm going to start easing you into like what you may be talking about for some part of your afternoon. We basically we actually have 4 pillars, but we kind of simplified things a little bit for today's discussion. There are 3, for sake of argument today, things that will be needed to be addressed in Manitoba's north to make for an environment that is conducive to having products that go into market and expand industry. The first and most sort of the a priori condition is that there needs to be access to the tools and digital infrastructure in order to sort of make that possible. That's sort of pretty basic, and there's not that there aren't initiatives to help address those, that challenge. But it's not only about putting pipes in the ground or putting fiber in the ground, I should say, but it's also about where maybe finding alternative means to do so, like simply putting a server in a remote community that could have a local cache of the top 20 Netflix programs. That's perhaps a more creative solution to simply providing access to digital technologies. With access comes then the ability to start developing a skilled talent pool, developing the skills to make digital media, but work in digital media companies, but also create new products and services. And I want to be clear that ranges from from youth and children to to the point of early coding programs, those sorts of coding tools that maybe don't even require computers or any screens, all the way through a K-12 education, participation in the University College of the North, or reskilling programs for adults that wish to perhaps move into becoming an interactive digital media professional. And then third, once there's skills, you'll have a easier environment to look at sort of the business and entrepreneurship angle or aspect of the industry. And that I want to stress has 2 principal components. One is the creating of new businesses and ideas, that sort of entrepreneurship and innovation angle, which requires supports and mentorships and understanding, and skilled talent, not just skills in terms of coding and developing and creating products, but also of commercialization, business, pricing plans, all that good stuff, as well. On business and entrepreneurship, one should also consider how to encourage existing companies to use interactive digital media to make themselves more profitable, more productive, easier to run, more responsive to their staff and or clients, all of that good stuff. And so it's both let's say a supply, thinking about the supply of digital media coming out of the north, but also the demand for interactive digital media services. And maybe even over time, some of those traditional companies, which you might have currently think of as a resource company, might become an interactive digital media company. And indeed, if you look to a lot of, let's say, dairy farmers, I would argue that dairy farmers these days are probably more data companies than they are actually farming companies, because that's, their job is to understand the data coming out of their, cows and so forth. So I will, thanks for now, and I'll pass it now to, I will relinquish the screen and pass it to Dan to keep us moving.
Hey, Dan, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Dan.
Okay, perfect. I had to change a setting and now it is working fine. As far as I know, I'll just keep talking. You didn't miss anything. That was the secret knowledge that no one gets anymore. No, all I was saying was I almost said good morning because I have no sense of time and I live in a digital world, so all time has blended together for me. I'm going to be expanding a little bit on what Kristian has said and talking about the opportunities for using interactive digital media, but specifically from the vertical that I'm in, which is virtual, augmented reality, and immersive technologies. And for the sake of everyone in this call, I will also explain a little bit of what that is. And most of my talk today will be talking about what those projects look like and a little bit about what that success can mean. So some practical applications for how you guys can use IDM now. Like Kristian said, there's a bunch of different pillars that go into a successful IDM industry. And based off of the people that I see in this call, I kind of catered my talk today to be more about the practical application of the technology as opposed to trying to convince all of you to become game developers and game designers or start your own companies, and instead are going to focus on ways that you can apply it yourself. So let's see if I can get going here. All right, so a little bit about myself, and this will be over the course of 3 slides here, but I like to solve problems, and I do that with immersive technologies. And XR kind of encompasses what that is as a whole, and that basically means VR, AR, machine vision, artificial intelligence, data visualization, stuff along those lines. My company is founded here in Winnipeg, so it's called Bit Space Development. We're only really called that here locally. We largely go by BSD. We're a highly ranked AR bespoke firm and hardware distribution company. We do a lot of our work out of the US. We primarily focus on Manitoba, though, when it comes to innovation projects. We've been involved in a lot of projects in the north, as well as in rural communities, indigenous communities, and I'll expand on a few of those in a moment. We are 100% staffed here in the province, and our headquarters is in the Exchange District. And we are still managing to grow within this pandemic. So we've actually added additional staff over this year, which has been great because, as you will see, IDM is a technology that can be easily applied even in a changing world, and in some cases may even make it easier to do your job because of these changes. I always forget the slides in here. That's me. I already introduced myself. I'm going to go past it. So a little bit about why we care about IDM and some of the opportunities it brings. So we find that, and some of these sources, I swear, are outlined at the end of this slide deck. So you can actually verify these numbers. But we find that about 83% more people retain knowledge after training in VR. So we use virtual reality for hazard identification, tool-based training, skills-based training, soft skills, all kinds of practical applications using the technology that you may not think of. Using VR, which allows us to put people into hazardous scenarios, but there's no actual danger. And we find that more people are able to retain that knowledge because you're practicing repetition. You're actually doing that skill. You're not watching a video and interpreting somebody else doing it. You're not listening to someone talk about it. You're doing it. 93% of people are enjoying the experiences when they go through these. That comes from a study that I did. This was actually based out of a project that we'll talk about in a moment called Try the Trades North, where we worked with our partners at the Manitoba Construction Sector Council and Trade at Manitoba and drove 56 headsets into the north to put kids into experiences and then asked them what they thought. So we found that about 93% of kids were engaged and enjoying the experiences when they were learning. The only difference in that stat versus what it was before was the addition of interactive digital media to those workshops. We also have had numerous deployments. I'm not going to get into all of them today. So immersive technology, it's also known as extended reality. It's a blanket term. I don't actually like it. Sort of, I do. It really depends. We can get into a further discussion on that later. But basically, like I said, it's anything that allows me to place you into another world or extend the world that you're in to better enhance the way that you're learning or experiencing what I want you to experience. And a lot of people ask me, what is the difference between AR and VR? Because inevitably somebody on this call will be confused, and that's okay. On the left, you can see virtual reality, and on the right, you can see augmented reality. But I have a better example for you. If you guys remember the movie Space Jam, when Michael Jordan goes into the Looney Tunes world and plays basketball with the Looney Tunes, that's VR. When they all come out and play basketball with him, that's AR. The mixed reality device landscape, likely at this point, almost everyone in this call has probably been exposed to VR in some capacity. There's a lot of different types of it though, and that could be anything from smartphone-based technology to standalone to PC-based. There's a whole AR side of things as well. At this point, there's so many different devices that the medium has expanded that we're just going to mostly briefly touch on what these devices look like and give you an idea of how you can deploy that into practical settings. But I'm not going to get into a super huge amount of detail. So smartphone-based VR is super common. A lot of people have applied this already in their businesses. Largely, this is using 3 degrees of freedom or 360-degree photos and videos. We've seen a lot of this done in specifically the forestry industry with our clients at in Kelsey School Division and the Canadian Craft Paper Mill, where we deployed a power engineering project. We've done a lot of this with Gerdo Steel and places where we want to place you on a job site and give you a general overview of how you can learn and how to not die. That's a big piece of it. How to not die while you're on the job. And that's just using smartphones that the users already have and probably a cardboard box. I'm not a huge fan of it. There's better technology now, but it is easily the most scalable and the largest size, largest deployment pool of devices that exist. There is some challenges with deploying it now because of changes in technology. There's also mobile augmented reality. So that is using your phone to place digital objects in your space. So if you imagine you want to promote your business or you want to promote a product that you're developing, you can place it into people's homes. So if you see in the picture there that someone has put a digital chair in their space to see how it would look. So whether that's artists wanting to show off their art in people's homes before they buy it, or businesses wanting to show equipment that they've developed or processes that they've developed, that becomes a really effective way to show it in someone's home, in a space that they're already familiar with. There's a lot of different reasons why we care about this technology. Philosophically, XR falls into a brand new medium similar to radio or apps or games, but it allows us to focus on things that allow me to give you a sense of empathy and tell you a story through the eyes of a player in a scenario. So when we think about interactive digital media in a broad term, we think about these video games as our example, whether you have kids that are playing PlayStation or are playing PC games, you know, this is putting them inside the eyes of that character. So whether you're telling them a story, whether you're trying to keep them safe, etc., there's a lot of different opportunities for using this technology in meaningful ways beyond just playing games. So I'd like to show this a little bit because this slide is actually from when my company started. So I started my company in 2015. So if you can imagine me banging on your door saying, do you want to buy a VR app in 2015? Well, there wasn't a lot of adoption in the industry, and the answer was probably no. Over the last few years, and I would argue that the 2022 and 2023 columns are a little bit small now compared to how we've had industry growth over the last couple of years. But you'll notice that there's a huge amount of growth in the standalone VR and not a lot of growth in smartphone-powered VR. So there was a huge jump in the amount of people using smartphones for XR technologies, and it never grew. In fact, a lot of the platforms that were used to develop that have since kind of either gone extinct or stagnant. But standalone technology is huge. That means that now businesses can apply this exact technology without the need for a huge PC-based experience, and instead can deploy inexpensive standalone headsets. I conveniently happen to have one that'll pull out of space right here. So this is a VR headset that doesn't require a PC. It doesn't require anything else. It's just put it on your head and you're good to go. And then what you're doing with it is up to you as you apply the technology. I've got another chart here, which I'm not going to talk about at all because I didn't even put it in there. So I primarily focus on using IDM and VR technology for education and training. So I'm going to even further kind of dive myself into a niche of a niche of a niche. Because there's all kinds of opportunities to apply this technology, but without practical applications and practical experiences and stuff along those lines, it's really difficult to make that justification. So a lot of people use XR for training, retail, trucking, military or defense, medical, product designers, manufacturing, construction, aerospace, agriculture, engineering, scientific, and the list goes on. At this point, there's really nothing that I can't teach you in VR, and that really is nice because it's really the only medium that allows us to tie into the element of training that is soft skills. So I talked about putting people into a scenario where they can have that empathy-focused experience. Well, that's because I put you in the eyes of someone. It's the only medium in which that allows me to actually properly give you that perspective outside of you actually experiencing it. And in 2016, I gave a TEDx talk called Reforging Reality, which I find a little cringy, and I'm not going to play it for you here today, but I talk a little bit more about the philosophical aspect of that and why that is. But at the end of the day, your reality is what you're experiencing. So from here on out, I'm really just going to dig into some practical examples of using interactive digital media, and then how we can measure success in those. And again, most of these are, if not all, are in VR, AR space, but we can talk at greater lengths, and I implore you to think about the overall underarching technology and the people that develop these experiences, because it's not just for VR, that just happens to be my niche. So Walmart, and I realize now that some of my slide is cut off a bit. I will send an updated version of that to the team to be posted. But Walmart is using VR for training to put people through those soft skills experiences where they are basically exposing customers or exposing staff to different types of customers and different procedures that they're going to have to go through. So when they go on the floor for the first time, they're not surprised. They've been around the block a few times. And Walmart's a good example because it's one of the biggest scale experiences that has been deployed in this capacity. Although I don't know if it has been updated recently to use newer hardware. In this, they're using standalone VR. The overall headsets tend to cost anywhere between $300 and $500, depending on your level of fidelity that you're looking for and the amount you need to walk around in the experience. This is an image that I took. I believe that's in Norway House. And that is a group of students doing a very similar type of experience. And with this, we have the kids in standalone VR headsets, and I don't know which experience each of them are doing, but there was about 15 different trades experiences that the kids were exposed to many of which were shot using 360-degree photos and videos captured in their own communities. So a lot of the stuff like rock truck operator and the traffic control were shot on the highway just outside of Thompson. So a lot of them have driven on that highway. They see the people that they're meeting in VR that are doing those jobs, and they're being exposed to that career from people that are from communities that are close to them. And it is a really powerful experience to put them in. And this is the actual group, or one of several groups. We had about 600 kids go through this experience on our little adventure in the north with this particular application, where we got our stat of about 93% of kids enjoying the experience. And when you think about it, all I'm doing here is putting them in a VR headset and showing them a traffic controller. I have a 12-year-old at home, and I don't think that that's particularly exciting of a concept if I was to tell her about it. But each of these kids is learning about jobs that they may have in the future using digital media. They aren't necessarily being exposed to the idea of building the game themselves, although that is hopefully something that I selfishly am hoping to expose to them. But they're using digital media to learn about their future potential opportunities. And I think that's a really powerful application of the technology. This is another example. I'm not going to play the video, but again, you'll be able to get these slides after, I'm told, of using VR for safety training, specifically for fire safety. That's obviously something that I'm not going to put you in real life. So giving people exposure to scenarios which would probably kill them, lighting the room on fire that they're in, we can't do that in real life, but we can do that in a virtual simulation. And we're utilizing digital skills like photographers, 3D artists, programmers, all kinds of game designers, and all kinds of different skills that are needed in order to create these experiences, but are very possible to teach and implement in the north. Another really cool example of using VR for learning how to teach drivers. This comes from UPS. Fun fact, after I created the slide, got to meet the guy that actually put this all together. So they're, UPS, another big company, utilizing this technology to train their drivers all over the world at this point, on how to drive around and interact with clients and all kinds of stuff that can be put into this type of experience. A little bit more of a non-game example here, using XR technology for visualization. So taking LiDAR scans and visualizing them in an XR experience, whether that's in anywhere from AR to VR, or even in a non-XR, so using your iPad to visualize that technology, often is using a lot of the same technologies that you would apply to a game experience. So taking a LiDAR scan like this one, whether that's of a quarry or a mine or a community, and being able to apply that to a visualization for planning, for storytelling, for all kinds of different applications. Again, virtual geology field trips. So this is playing off the exact same mindset of taking that scan and creating a visualization, but applying it into a more practical application, taking kids there using technology, which is super applicable today because our kids can't go on field trips, at least not physically. So using technology that would fall under the realm of interactive digital media to create those meaningful field trips is huge. Again, skills training using the exact same scans and exact same technologies, just applied in different ways. And I'm not going to dig into it again because this is another example that, this is the one I actually wanted. Okay, so XR technology being able to bring remote teams together. I love this right now. So one of the biggest things that we're working on right now with our clients remotely, because again, lots of them are in the US, across Canada, in the north, like very, very few are actually that close to me physically that we can collaborate easily. The example that you see on the screen here shows a number of 3D avatars working on designing a physical space together using 3D avatars. My team every single day meets regardless of where they are. So sometimes they've gone home to the communities that they originally were from before going to school and working with me. Some of them are still in the city. They're all over the place at this point, but every morning we meet up together in a virtual digital space with avatars where we can still have that morning stand-up, still wave to each other, still talk to each other, and have that sense of connection that we can't get over just a Zoom call. So applying technology in a really meaningful way to allow humans to connect is one of the most important advances in technology that we have during this pandemic, and is a very realistic thing that can be applied for businesses today. And so I'm going to just show a few examples of things I specifically have been involved in. So these are products that were developed here in Manitoba, some of which you may have seen. So Level Up VR was developed with Safe Workers of Tomorrow and Safe Work Manitoba. We utilized virtual reality technology to teach kids about being safe on job sites. So the skills used to create this included 3D artists, developers, designers, all of which were sourced from schools here in the province. So every single person that worked on this project was from Manitoba. Unfortunately, most of them from Winnipeg. It would have been really cool to include people from UCN as those projects or those departments are built out in the future. But the entire project, we've had 2 versions of it now developed here in Manitoba, and 2 for 2 versions, we've won awards for this work, meaning physical trophies from international organizations that look at this type of work to say that innovation is happening here. I'm not going to show you the testimonials. You can read those when you get the slides yourself. This project was really fun because it allowed us to use 3 degrees or 6 degrees of freedom standalone headsets like the one I have in front of me here, which is the Oculus Quest that keeps disappearing into space, to allow kids to walk around in the experience and interact with the world and identify hazards and be immersed in that scenario. And we showed them everything from working on a construction site to being a store clerk, etc. So it was a really cool experience to get them to think about safety and to use game technology and use IDM to get them to think and be excited about thinking about these experiences, because just having them walk up to a booth to learn about being safe maybe wouldn't have engaged them in the same capacity that that pulling them over with VR headsets had. So this is an image of what one of the scenes looked like working in a warehouse. And I like to include this for myself because that is a hockey game with the branding of something that we developed all over it. That's never happened before. So you may have seen that promoted in the past. The use of power tools experience was developed through the Workers' Compensation Board with the Manitoba Construction Sector Council and is a free tool that was developed that is being utilized by schools, specifically through Trade Up Manitoba. And introduces kids to the use of power tools using VR technology. I'm just going to jump ahead to the image of it. But as you can see here, after the students have put on their PPE, they are exposed to a job site where they have to perform a duty, whether that's cutting wood on a table saw, using a drill, etc. It really exposes them to the use of technology in a the use of IDM in a meaningful capacity, because they're being immersed in it and they're being asked to do something that we're probably not going to do in real life. We're not going to bring a bunch of power tools into a school to have 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds learn how to use them. Another cool example, IBEW here in Winnipeg, we collaborated on a project also through the Workers' Compensation Board, which allowed us to go onto job sites to take 360-degree photos. So this is an image showing some of the interactive hotspots. This was built out using our software tool called VR Safety, which I'm not going to go into detail here today, but feel free to reach out to me about it at any point. It allows us to put people on real job sites. So when you're thinking about IDM and the practical applications of it, I like to get people to think about metrics and how we engage our users. So I like to think about engagement, retention, and performance. So how are our users interacting with the software? Are people enjoying the experience? Likely the introduction to IDM into your programming will improve that metric, hopefully, if it's developed and designed correctly. Retention, it isn't just enough to retain, to engage people. We want them to absorb the knowledge that we're sharing with them, and hopefully they hold on to that knowledge. And then again, performance, are we making them better at the job that they're doing? So 83% of people are likely to perform better after they've learned in this technology. Are we able to actually show that they are retaining that? So I'm at 20 minutes here, so I'm not gonna ramble on. So I am at the end of the thing here, and hopefully at this point you've thought of some ways that you can apply technology. Again, my niche is in VR, so take all of that with a grain of salt, because of course you can apply this into apps, games, websites, data, all kinds of things. I am more than happy to at any point dig into any of that with any of you guys. But at this point, hopefully you have some ideas percolating in your mind about how you can think about digital media and apply it into the North today. And I really hope that we can expand on that as a group for the rest of this session today. So thank you, everyone. I will release my screen and mute myself and release it back to the handlers.
Great. Well, thank you, Kristian. Thank you, Dan. Those were just some incredible presentations, very informative. And as I mentioned at the start, we will have those presentations posted on our website for anyone who wants to have a copy later. Also, we are doing some work with Bit Space that anyone wants to get some more information, please contact Chris Seveno, our CFO, and he will be able to advise you guys on some of the work that we're doing on our end here. In saying that, I just want to now pass this on to Envision Edge and introduce everyone to Ryan. Ryan is an engaging, enthusiastic virtual in-person facilitator. We've been working with Ryan for probably the last two months now. We've learned a lot of what Envision Edge does, and in exchange, Envision Edge has learned a lot about our operations as well. He's very passionate about group discussions that stretch an individual's innovation and strategic thinking skills through the discovery of new concepts. So Ryan guides participants through a systematic approach to addressing challenges, leveraging Envision Edge's innovation and strategy methodology to achieve breakthrough results. So I'm now going to pass this on to Ryan, and he's going to take us through the balance of our workshop today. So Ryan?
Great. Thanks, Oswald. Thanks, everybody. And that's awesome to hear from Kristian and Dan today. Very exciting work. Now, what do we do with the information that we have? And what I love about what Oswald and the CEDF team has sort of put together for these forums, or for today and going forward, is taking advantage, if you will, of getting so many stakeholders and participants around the virtual table so that we can actually generate some ideas, so that we can hear from you. So these presentations each day will kind of follow the same format for those of you who will be returning. We'll hear some exciting information about what's happening in that particular sector and as it relates to Northern Manitoba. And then the fact that we have so many people on the call, Oswald and team saw the opportunity to leverage the system that we work with called innovation engineering. That's a skills-based training. So it's not a technology-based training, what we do. So we're here to help you through a process to stimulate divergent thinking. Think differently from what you typically do, off the beaten path. And that process sometimes is very fun, and sometimes it's very painful. Why is it painful? That doesn't sound fun. I don't want to be on a call that's going to be painful for the next hour and 12 minutes. Well, too bad. You have registered, so there's no getting out now. But really, why that is because our brains tend to think the same way. We take the path of least resistance. And when it comes to solving problems, when it comes to addressing strategic initiatives like we're going to look at in interactive digital media today, we would come up with the same old idea. If I asked you to just come up with an idea, you'd be like, oh, I don't know, then maybe we'll put a program together. Kids can go after school. And maybe that's already done, and maybe it's great, but it's not a breakthrough idea. At that point, we're just maybe doing what we've already done before. So the point of what we're going to do, we're going to get into breakout rooms. We're going to do this twice. So the point of what we're doing is to generate a high volume of ideas. And we have some excellently skilled idea coaches, also known as the CEDF team, who are ready to capture those ideas. And what we're going to have is this immensely valuable idea pipeline. And however CEDF wants to put that into action going forward, they can do that now with information that's really engaged a lot of those key stakeholders in the conversation. So the first thing that we're going to do, and I should mention David's on the call as well. So David's part of the Envision Edge team. He's supporting all the technology on the back end for these meetings all week long. And he will also be coaching along the way. There he is. He will be coaching along the way as well in the breakout room. So David and I will be bouncing back and forth. We're going to do 4 rooms. And we're going to get you started with some instructions. And then we'll be bouncing around just to help things move along. First thing I should point out is we're working under a specific strategic initiative. So we worked with, in this case today, worked with Kristian and his team talking about some of those key strategic initiatives around interactive digital media. I'm going to share my screen quickly just to show you what excellent work Kristian and Lola did here on this blue card. The blue card is there to define the sandbox. And that's really going to help us in idea generation. Otherwise, we're just going to throw you into a breakout room and say, come up with some ideas around interactive digital media. And it might be like, give me more information. Like, help give me some boundaries here, right? That's what the blue card does. So on the top left, we're talking about this is a new opportunity that we want to investigate. That's where the Y is kind of checked off by very important opportunity. And then there's a Y by core innovation. What we mean by core innovation is lower risk, lower impact, and sometimes easier to implement on the short term. So you'll see right below it, we're looking for short-term ideas. And it says, is this for the total company? Well, I would change the word company with industry. And to that, the answer is yes. Then we go into the narrative. Well, there's the name there, improving equitable access to digital infrastructure. And then there's a narrative underneath that. To unlock economic, social, and cultural benefits, the necessary infrastructure needs to be in place. I won't read the whole thing. It distills down to what's in the top right corner. We need ideas for the purpose of optimizing the use of the existing digital infrastructure in northern Manitoba. Great. There you go. That's what we need ideas for in this next breakout room. And you'll be working under, we've got 3 different blue cards. Whatever breakout room you go into now, you'll be introduced to that blue card, and you'll work with that for both of our 2 exercises today. Exclusions, continuing down the right side, are the things that we don't want you to get caught up in. So that's the don't go here. And in the case of the example you're looking at, that's asking for more federal funding for broadband. It's not going to generate an idea, right? So if the purpose is for leveraging that existing digital infrastructure and the idea is, well, let's put an application into the federal government and they'll figure it out for us. Or let's call Google and they're going to launch some low Earth orbit satellites. No, that's not where we want to go. Okay, so if I can't think about those, we need to think elsewhere. And a constraint here would be, what's our time limitation? What's our budgetary limitation? How many people are going to be involved in this? So the constraint here being no new infrastructure funding. Exploration areas at the bottom, they kind of tell us where we want our thinking to go. So we know where we're not going with exclusions. We know the limitations defined by the constraints. But now where do we want our thinking to direct? So in this case, how do remote communities already cope with slow or poor internet? So using that as kind of stimulus. Number 2, effects of programs like Broadband Communications North, if you're familiar with that. So I got pretty far into that one example, but that's just to give you an appropriate blue card tour. 4 breakout rooms, each of you will have your own unique blue card. The CEDF staff who is in your breakout room will read that blue card out to you first thing. In fact, I would ask folks if you could share that too, CEDF folks, if you could share your screen with that blue card just so it's there and we're all viewing the same thing. And then we're going to walk you through just some prompts. So the first one we're going to deal with is this. What is the biggest problem faced in this industry or in this community in regards to that today? So you'll hear your blue card, and then we want you to think, what's a big problem that comes to mind for you? Secondly, what's a big opportunity maybe that pops into your head right away? We're going to investigate those, and the CEDF staff will capture your ideas. We will do this for the next, sorry, I just got to do a time check here. Yeah, we've got a good 20 minutes that we're going to spend in our breakout rooms on that. So we'll be back at 2:45, and we will see you in your breakout rooms right now.
Sufficient broadband needs to be available. While not all of IDM needs the same infrastructure, it all needs something. Also, we recognize that government programs to improve the infrastructure take time and sometimes do not live up to the initial promises. So our strategic mission is to optimize the use of existing digital infrastructure in Northern Manitoba. Our exclusions, asking for more federal funding for broadband or any major capital projects. Our tactical constraints is no new infrastructure funding. So our areas that we are looking to explore, where we are looking for wonderful ideas, is how remote communities already cope with the slow, poor internet and the effects of programs like broadband communications in the north. So I don't know if anybody's already got some ideas that they want to share with us on how, with the examples that we were just shown, what are some of the things that we could see virtual reality or the interactive digital media in the north?
And we thought a bit in the scope. Oh, I see Derek. Did you put up your hand there?
Yeah, I did. I was gonna say something. Just going. I'm just going back to something I saw, like it was kind of touched on in Dan's presentation. I think he's in the room. Well done, Dan. But it was, I guess he showed a piece of VR technology that basically you didn't require a PC and was able to offer a variety of programming. So I guess it's kind of also a technical question to put out there, like, do those type of headsets exist that might be able to be kind of preloaded with a whole bunch of experiences or software interactive programming on there that could then be, you know, shipped up, shipped back, reprogrammed or something like that for new modules or content? It would sort of get around that, but sort of preloading headsets. But I don't know if that's possible, but.
And you point out a great thing there when you say, I don't know that's possible, and shame on me for not catching that in the intro. A couple rules to idea generation are no judgment. And we often say that not because of others. In a meeting like this, nobody's going to call out, oh, Derek, that's stupid. Nobody's going to say anything. But Derek might say to Derek, this is ridiculous. Right? So it's that internal voice. So we're not worried about feasibility of the idea at this stage, because the desired outcome of these sessions is high quantity of ideas that can be tested out. So further in a process, we can look at the death threats, we can measure the risk, and we can experiment using fail fast, fail cheap cycles to see if it's a feasible idea. But it's way easier to take something that's big and ridiculous and make it small and feasible. It's almost impossible to take something small and boring and try to blow it up like a balloon. It won't happen. So I just wanted to say that. I'm glad you said I'm not sure if, because that sparked that. So great idea. Preloaded headset.
Sure. And absolutely that's possible. And the headsets that Dan had it's kind of similar to an iPod. You can access the internet, you can use the Wi-Fi, get new software, stream videos, but you can also just have an iPod that's standalone. It has a ton of songs, ton of apps and all that. So for sure. And, you know, I guess, what do you think that would, in the schools, were you thinking? Was it more industry, or was there a particular use you had in mind for that?
Virtual shopping, virtual learning. So everything's happening in the community. It's the same infrastructure all the way around the community. And they could almost, I don't know, everybody would be sharing or using the same infrastructure. So it's not, there's no advantages or disadvantages, because the amount of power bandwidth that each business is getting is going to be about the same all the way around. So if you're working with something like that, then what about modifying delivery of services or goods and products to suit what's already in place.
So does anyone want to add on that, or any additional IDM industries that they can see coming to the north?
I think Shannon's comment is very interesting. I can build on that in terms of education. First of all, I wanted to introduce myself. I work for the Partnerships and Innovation Office at the University of Manitoba, as well as the Manitoba Industry Academia Partnership. So a couple weeks ago, we had a tour at Red River College, their latest built technology access center. And we heard the comments that especially now remote learning for the North is so important, because in an ideal world, students can come to Winnipeg for their apprenticeship for construction or
you're no longer allowed to get together. And so there's been conversation nonstop about how to connect. And perhaps this would be a really interesting way to open that door for that community again.
To be accessible to one another without physically having to be in each other's space.
Yeah, we're doing all live streaming. We're doing the, the click track, whatever. But again, it's all pre-programmed. But to be able to have that really, people are missing that tremendously. It might be something there. I don't know.
So the problem that we'd be solving in that case is the fact that you cannot actually physically be with one another. You can still have that connection. Is that the problem you'd be looking to solve?
Yeah, and it might be like 2 years before people can actually connect as performers. And so even like in our case, for something like the Flin Flon Community Choir, we were planning to be in Carnegie Hall last April. And if it's 2 years before we can actually develop that kind of technique again, that's going to take us a few years to get back to par, to get back into the kind of quality we need to be able to go back to New York, should people be able to go back to New York. But it would be a real practical tool. And I also give the two thumbs up, plus any other thing I can offer for the tourism of the North. I think this would be, people would really enjoy to be able to have that experience as well, to see what's up here.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that we're, I guess, now that we're turning into the digital age, thanks to COVID, I mean, now an opportunity now, I think, to bring this more to light than we ever have before. It's definitely an area of growth. For sure. So as far as any other industries or areas that maybe we can use these, or any of the hurdles, anybody else have some input? I see Dan's got in the chat box here. Just got to open it up so I can actually read it.
I can explain it.
Sure.
So I put a chat, an item in the chat, just based off of specifically what Crystal was saying. The ability to connect and kind of be together is obviously a challenge, and this is kind of going away from VR.
Well, and the interesting thing as well, I remember that picture that Dan showed us of all those kids in the classroom with their VR goggles on. How often do you see that much focus in a classroom of students? There's no doubt, and I mentioned this, that my son is 10 years old and he's had his iPad since he was 5, and it is one of the ways that kids just learn these days. So we seem to have a good focus on education as being one of those main ways to use IDM, especially with some of the challenges that the North has when it comes to higher learning, the situations like housing and so on. Who wants to add some additional items, or anyone want to build more on the education angle?
I
If you
think
don't mind me pushing you a little further with that education one, like I think it's a great beginning to a direction, right? So I'm looking at the blue card over here on my other screen. You're working on building IDM businesses in Northern Manitoba, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I guess it's shared on the screen. I can answer my own question. So when I think of creation and support of IDM business in Northern Manitoba, so you're identifying education as a potential customer, right? So if I'm an IDM business or I want to start up an IDM business, one of my ideal clients might be education. So let's take that even further and get like more to an idea. If I'm walking in the door virtually or personally and I'm going to sell them something, what am I selling them? Am I just selling them a pair of VR glasses? Is there more to it? Is there an experience tied to it? What can we build off of that? So that is, I mean, we want it to pop, right? We don't, like, we're not worried about feasibility right now. And with the other group I'm with, I apologize that I didn't mention that in my intro. I usually do. We are going to defer judgment. And I don't think you'll judge each other's ideas. That's not usually the way it works. We usually judge our own ideas, right? Oh, that's stupid, or that sounds too wild and crazy. This is the place for wild and crazy. Oswald's got the powers to make this feasible afterwards, or he'll hand it off. But we can take something that's wild and crazy and huge, and we can make it feasible through process. We can't take something that's small and boring and try to blow it up like a balloon. It won't work. So I love where we're going, but I think we just need a bit more of a push to get into that breakthrough area where it's truly meaningfully unique. I haven't heard of this particular application before. So let's take a next step.
I'm just going off by what Ryan had just said and kind of turned my train of thought a bit. So if we're talking about building IDM businesses in Northern Manitoba, that could be like taking a digital program that a student picks up faster than an adult, because in my house it happens every day. My kids get it. And have that student teach the teacher. So almost like a digital programming, but a virtual classroom. You know, like it's student built, and it's student led. So they know what they're after and what they're looking for. Just give me 1 second. Sorry, I just had to turn off a toy in the background. Student built, student led, yet at the same time, it's educationally executed, I guess, or delivered.
Is it kind of like a build your own classroom? Is that something, I don't know if I'm building up and changing it.
Anything 3D imaging like Verba or that type of platform.
I was thinking of some of that technology we saw where, and I wasn't admittedly totally listening to every detail, but it caught my attention that people could still do morning huddles in a different environment than just a Zoom call. So you almost feel like you're in the space. And I know here's something that happens at my kids' school every year. They actually get at the end of the year to select 2 people that they want in their class. There's no guarantee that it will get those people in their class, but what if you could build your own class every day? Right? Who's in it, what you study, when you study it. So it's almost like student-driven on-demand programming or curriculum or class structure.
Right, we're getting there.
Getting there.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear from others on that one. Lila or Min Lee, or I can't. We've got Shirley and Diane quietly over on the other side of my list here.
I think that to make that pop, especially in our different world today, and even if, you know, in a perfect world in the north, we're going to have better broadband and better internet so that this can happen. as a homeschooler, it is. If children can pick what they want to learn at the time they're ready to learn it, they do so much better. They learn so much better. And I think to sell that to a parent, you would have to have kids on board. So that's why I like the idea of a student built, student led, because they can teach the parent, you know, like how to teach them, or teach the teacher how to teach them.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we all learn at our different paces, right? And that could be the way that that type of business could come at you, is just the better outcomes.
Yeah. And then the whole VR or whatever, it's just an add-on, right? There's a technology to support it. It might not even be VR, but they could pick that package if they want. And through your comments, you just expanded who the customer is. So now we would have an idea for, I'm selling to a school board, but you mentioned homeschoolers. And I've gone down that road. My wife has homeschooled a couple times. We've come and gone from it a couple times. But if you could sell to homeschoolers and go to their conferences and talk about the benefits of this. So now you have two different customer types. I'm saying that for those who are taking notes and making idea cards out of this. There's two different ones. And we're getting a time warning here that we got just a couple minutes left and we'll be reconvening. So I'm going to bounce to the other breakout rooms. You're doing great. Think about a problem. See if you can get one more idea out there. What's a common problem in starting a business like this in the North? You know, maybe there's roadblocks there. I'll leave you with that, and I'll see you in the main room after.
Quite succeeded at was having some kind of platform to really connect the different cultural nuances of the country. And we were looking at different the cable industry, etc. But thinking about it, this might be a really intriguing way of connecting the country and the different cultural aspects of the country through these this kind of technology. It would be kind of neat.
So what vision would you have for a cultural? You actually utilize that in a cultural platform?
Well, see, when you talk about the avatars, now again, I feel like I'm just sort of jumping into this with you. Everybody's so much more experienced than I am, but
no,
one of the
except for Chris.
One of the topics that we had talked about a few years ago, and again, this is more the avatar thing, is communicating through avatar symbols. And so this is not exactly how I could imagine this technology working, but we had been talking and we used it briefly for 1 year, where in Flin Flon our symbol is a prospector, and in Quebec the symbol is the bonhomme, and in Stratford it's the swan, or whatever the case might be, and then having those avatars as sort of being able to be sort of guiding you through their virtual reality. So anyways, that was just a conversation we were having about 6 or 7 years ago, and it's interesting that there might be a technology that's can possibly have fun with that. But in more in line with what we're talking about, just having these virtual reality technology, so that you could understand what a powwow is, or understand what what a canoeing would be, through the lakes, or understand what it would be like walking.
Hi, Diane. I just wanted to say that I heard your last few minutes there before we got booted. So thank you for your contribution.
You're welcome.
And you're absolutely right about what you're used to as well. But you know what? One of the things with COVID is that it's pushed us into doing things that we just have not been used to. And in some ways, we have learned a lot more about technology. I know I have.
Oh, me too. And I'm more connected to the world here than I was when I was in the South, because technology is so much more in use.
Well, we're back. Sounds like we're wrapping up a couple good thoughts there. Awesome work. Wow, it's great to pop into those breakout rooms and just hear you going for it. The great thing about we call that exercise mind dump. That needs to happen, right? Because again, there's going to be those initial responses, those idea responses, because we're wired to solve problems. We all do it differently, but we're wired to solve problems. Now, I'm occupying my main screen. I don't know if I'm occupying yours, but you'll have to put me on speaker view if you want to read this. This is new technological development called a whiteboard, and you can actually put words on it, erase them, and put a brand new set of words on it later. So you can look into that. You can Google that later. Now, what I want, and these are things I forgot, so the 2 breakout rooms who saw me and heard from me have heard this already. Forgive the repeat, but you can never repeat this enough when you're doing idea generation. We have an internal voice that wants to tell us it's not possible, it sounds dumb, don't bother. Defer judgment. Now, if we were all in one organization, there might be a different dynamic, right? We're more comfortable with each other. We work together a long time. We're around the same table. And, that's enough. You always have that idea. So that's a different deferred judgment where we allow people to just express whatever raw idea it is. So deferred judgment. In this situation, it'll probably be more your internal voice. So throw it out there. Quantity over quality is the ticket. That's what we're actually trying to achieve by the end of this week, that we have this big, huge pile of meaningful, unique ideas so that they can be sifted through. It says, this relates directly to our strategic initiative. I love that. That pops for me. I never would have thought of that. Let's get a project together so that we can implement this and start testing it right away. That's what we want. Don't be boring. It's difficult to take a small, boring idea and try to blow it up. It won't work. But if you take a big, wild, crazy idea, you can prove it out over time and bring it into the realm of feasibility. This, however, this time we have together is not for worrying about that stuff. It's just about letting it fly and about not being boring. Okay, so we have some time to debrief here. I'd like to hear from someone from one of the breakout rooms, just an idea that stood out to you. If you could share it with us, please. We'll just take a couple minutes for that, and then we'll do our second and final kind of exercise together. What's a standout idea from one of the groups?
Well, I can throw one out there. This started with Shannon. We talked about education. By the way, this is in regards to the blue card for building IDM business in Northern Manitoba.
Thank you.
And one of the things that we talked about is how the customer would be people in education, whether school board or even parents who do homeschooling. And the main things we found was that due to some of the challenges of education and the whole thing about all one size that fits all and how that has failed in the past is how we use technology, interactive technology, to more specialized and have kids, and the logo is student built, student led, where you basically have the students say, okay, this is what I'd like to get taught in this manner, and really flesh that out to make sure that, of course, there's certain things you'd have to look at as make sure that there's a certain boxes ticked, but the use of IDM and how young kids have really ran with that lends itself to be a very great tool for them to learn on an individual basis. So that's what we talked a bit about.
Awesome. Thanks, Oswald. So kind of like build your own class, build your own curriculum, customize the learning delivery through technology. And there may be different packages available there too. I was in that breakout room and I heard over time the customer, and you're probably being asked by those idea coaches, who's this for? What problem does it solve? So in that case, it started off as, I'm starting an IDM business in Northern Manitoba and I'm going to sell to a school division. And then it came up that homeschoolers, now we have a whole other customer segment. Maybe the problem we're solving is different at that point. Maybe it's so that the parent has more time to, grow their garden or whatever the case may be while the kid is self-directing. But anyway, it changes that, right? I'd love to hear one more. Let's get one more idea out there that came up in that group.
I just like to follow up that Finland is a country that has totally abolished subjects when in school. They're putting together a whole different constellation, and I think that they might be a place to look for ideas about how the kids can co-create these spaces and how you can get the knowledge across, because they're ahead of us on this. And I think this technology would be really great for allowing it to happen.
Awesome. Did you say Finland?
Finland, yeah.
See, and that would be a perfect exploration area. So when we're generating these ideas, we want to go back to and check them by the blue card. So is this customizable approach to sell an IDM product in Northern Manitoba feasible? You know, then we're going to look at the blue card and say, so what, okay, we're not going to be, I'm just going to look at it, we're not reliant on funding models, but an exploration is what you just put out there. So we could now amplify our exploration areas and say, look at what Finland is doing.
And they come up on the top for education all the time. Like they're the top country in the world. So if they're doing it, I think, you know, we don't have to create a lot.
Awesome. Yeah, you can get a lot of good stimulus from there. Our blue card does say it needs to be short term. So how do we do that? I think we do that through looking at the customer segment, probably the homeschooler, the Northern homeschooler, because you could implement something once you have your product ready, you could get that to them right away. Whereas opposed to selling to a school board and suggesting they change the entire way that they do instruction, that's a pretty long haul. So we would pivot based on what our blue card is telling us and say, focus here. So let's find those associations and let's talk with them. I'd say that's where that goes. Anyway, great.
There's also those 1 month courses that the school board does, and I think that might be a place to experiment with it too. And it can be done then on a subject and school specific and very small and then it'd be very scalable.
Yeah, love your thinking there. So let's take the experiment and go small. We'll fail fast, fail cheap with it. Well, what do we learn if we just do a subject? And then what happens if we expand it? Great. We got natural idea people on the call here. Thank you for that. And I love builds. That's a natural and organic process to idea generation too, where someone says, I like what I hear there, what if? And this is a safe place to take that approach as well. So with that, thank you for expressing those. We're going to do one more. What we're going to do here is present a specific list of prompts to you. And it's just like, so what if we took that idea and we flipped something around? What if we took one piece of that process out? Or what if we zoned in on one piece of the process? How would things be different? So how you want to manage this in your breakout rooms, it's up to you. What you can do is you can take one of those existing ideas, and our idea coaches will help us with that. They'll say, you know what, let's bring this idea back out. And now what if we broke it down into pieces? What if we flip this around? Anyway, we'll have those prompts for you. You don't have to memorize those. We'll be asking you those throughout. And really what we're trying to do now is we're trying to get you to drill down to the next layer, to think deeper, because we start off high level, but we realize, oh, wait a second, I don't really have an idea here. I've got kind of a concept or a theme. So now I'm going to kind of bring it down to earth a little bit more. That's why we use that architecture of who's the stakeholder or customer, what problem are you solving, how are you solving that, what's going to get better. We'll use that architecture to just bring it down to ground. Now, these prompts are going to say, okay, but what if you change this? And what you can get is an entirely new idea. It doesn't throw the other one out, but it's like pouring water on a gremlin, if you're catching the gremlin reference. Right now, all of a sudden, these things multiply all over the place. That might be way too 80s. I apologize for that. But pop culture references are me jam. I think that was in my intro. So we want those ideas to multiply, and it doesn't mean you throw one thing out. It means now you have more to work with, right? And again, later in the process, we can check those things out. I love it that people are using chat. I love gremlins, good. I'm sure you don't love gremlins too, though. Okay, no. Good. So all we have in there are the checklist prompts. Yeah, I've got all kinds of stories about me watching gremlins too, but well, for another time. Maybe that'll be on Friday's forum meeting where it's Casual Friday. Ryan gets to talk about whatever he wants. Okay, so with that, we are going to go back into our breakout rooms, and we're going to take a nice, healthy 20 minutes. I think we've got time for about 20 minutes. Oswald, and we'll still wrap at the same time, maybe just 5 minutes to wrap up if that's enough. I'm putting him on the spot. I didn't ask or totally poor decorum there. So we'll go in 20 minutes and we'll come back. We'll share out a little bit and that will be the end of our day. So look forward to seeing you in the breakout rooms. All right, you'll still be working under that same blue card. We'll see you in a bit.
I'll just maybe throw out an idea there, but if it's the application is tourism and the market for that is really then not the Northerners, right? It's people you're trying to attract to come up and visit and experience Northern Manitoba. Then it seems that you could develop the content of Northern Manitoba, record it, capture it, those experience, put it into the kind of digital format, but then have it for distribution, diffusion, like in Southern Manitoba, right? Or for others who market that would probably have broadband access. So, because you're not necessarily using it you're trying to showcase what you've got in the North in that case through it, not so much have users in the North be interacting with the technology.
Right. So you're thinking pre-programmed Northern experiences that are being fed out elsewhere. So they don't have that direct interaction, but they still interact within their VR headset on a pre-recorded, similar to the training materials that they use with the students. Is that what you were?
Yeah, I suppose like in the examples were, again, remembering Dan's presentation, it must have stuck in my mind, but where he was saying there was like some 360 filming of an actual work site, right? And then that experience can be translated to others to go virtually into that real experience. Maybe that's some of the ways so that the fishing lodges, the outfitters, all those different types of really unique kind of world-class Northern experiences can be captured somehow in that way, and then people interact with, and they're, encouraged to want to go up to the North.
So fun aspect to build off of that, the cameras that are used to create that, I mean, some of them are really expensive and challenging to deploy, but there are really inexpensive ones. So there's a GoPro camera called the GoPro Fusion that costs only about $500. Photographers that are already doing photography work in the North could be applying that technology to capture spaces, events, field trips, cultural events, all those kind of things. And that content just needs to be housed somewhere. So, there's a bunch of different ways to tackle that problem, but from the content creation side, the cameras are inexpensive to the point that it's, cheaper than buying a phone.
And I'm sure like other types of programs like Travel Manitoba and things like that could be, approached for that type of funding that's just going to capture tourism content and help with the marketing. And
really important aspect to the VR tourism component that I like to bring up often is, and this kind of goes all the way back to like the beginning of the year. So normally I'm traveling all the time. Like on normal circumstances, I mean, I'd probably be up north talking to you guys, but like, I wouldn't be doing this from Winnipeg. I would be probably up there. I would have probably just got back from California. And before that, I would have been in BC. And before that, I would have been in Ottawa. And that was just my life. But obviously with COVID, I've stopped traveling so much, but I haven't stopped digital meetings and digital conferences. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about the impact that I've been able to save on the planet and the amount of like jet fuel I'm not using. So when you think about the green aspect of traveling and meeting digitally, that is a huge amount of greenhouse emissions that we can not count for. That is a huge amount of unnecessary waste produced. The environmental impact of going digital for these kind of things is enormous in a positive way. And so I think that becomes a very important thing to consider when you're thinking about using IDM technology for connecting in this way.
So it sounds like I came in late to the party here. I love what I'm hearing. And we're talking about this blue card mission of using existing digital infrastructure. It sounds like a little bit of a flip on that, where the existing infrastructure is sort of the equipment and the skills and talents that we have north, and now we're coming up with a business opportunity to monetize that for a customer down south. Is that what I'm understanding?
we were talking about virtual tourism and the fact that it would be northern Manitoba content pre-recorded, and then it would be presented in the south.
Right.
And
Yeah,
it could be
just
created by northern businesses that are already shooting content for tourism or cultural preservation.
yeah, I like it. I'm trying to connect it to the strategic mission we're working with there, and it sounds like it is just a bit of a tweak on that mission where it's using existing digital infrastructure. I think of the blue card in the scope of, and I think this is just because my background is in telecom, is like, do we actually have broadband there? Do we have infrastructure there? How much will it cost to put infrastructure in there? So on and so forth. But I like what you're saying is there's other infrastructure, if you will, like skills and equipment that we can now shift into a business model and monetize it in a different way. So the people in the north they aren't gaining any actual access to connectivity, but they've monetized something to sell it to someone else who has that kind of infrastructure in play. I like that.
Yeah, and what we were saying in the first breakout too is, okay, a lot of remote places have inconsistent broadband. So our solution was bring in a bunch of preloaded VR headsets, and that's your little hub, and you can work from that. Then you reload them at a separate time. So they operate in islands, and that's existing technology.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So we're kind of building off that idea.
Yeah.
That's good. And I think like we're going to ask some prompts. I don't know if that's already got out there, but I think of like the rearrange prompt. So we like to ask this question, like what could be arranged by kind of altering the pattern to your idea, the sequence or layout. And to me, it sounds like that's a bit of a rearrange. So I like that. That's great. Can we present another idea just for conversation's sake? Like let's hear, so we had the preloaded ones from last time. What's another idea we captured? And if we can get a technology solution for this stupid light that turns itself off every 5 minutes, that'd be great too.
Well, it was brought up the culture days, regional avatars guiding through different cultural events in the region. So I guess that's along the lines of tourism as well. There was, connecting with other people with the skills. They were in the choir group because the COVID, you can't get together to practice. So it doesn't necessarily have to be choir, but people can keep up their skills while they're still separate. Something you can't do over email, something you can't do over the phone. There was, for students, whether training or navigation for universities. So we had a few ideas going around, but they kind of all centered on those VR headsets, VR technology, how that could be used. And the big message I got was that, to maximize the digital infrastructure is like really find out how we engage with this technology. And if we get strong engagement, that's going to really grow. So it's really the content too.
So why don't we hone in on that, Chris? I like that point, is the engagement. And Dan has probably experienced this, right? I'm sure you have. As you built your company and as you try to sell to customers, there's going to be resistance. And I don't know if resistance is geographical or cultural, but I'm going to assume there probably is going to be some of that influence as well. So what problems can we identify in, getting residents of these communities to kind of embrace that technology? What problems do you think exist?
So I've got a couple problems to get you guys started. One, when you think about applying this technology for an older workforce or older generations, generally there is a bit of resistance in the sense of like, this is new and different. And this is, we've been doing it this way forever. Another challenge that we're going to encounter as part of this is think of the current pandemic situation. You have to think of the cleanliness of the headsets. So how are you cleaning those? How are you responding to people sharing headsets? Is it one headset per person or are people sharing? These are like just two to get us started, but like those are two real things that I deal with every day.
Yeah, those are great. Thanks, Dan. I'm going to write down and ask you guys to work on that first one. So it's the new and different. I've called it the new and different generational resistance, right? So what are some ways that we can look at that problem and kind of maybe break it down into elements? So what are the elements of this problem if we're going to kind of map it out, or some of the why? Give me aspects. Why would somebody resist something that's new and different?
People don't like change.
I had two at once there.
Go ahead, Steph.
I was saying people just don't like change.
Okay. Chris?
I think people see this technology as levels. You know, some might be just getting used to a phone and they think, okay, a computer is higher than that. And then VR headset is another level above that. So I can barely work a laptop. I'm not going to know how to use goggles. So
yeah, too
seeing
complex.
where it's scaled. Yeah.
Yeah, too complex. I'm not ready / skilled.
I will say that this whole day has been a lot more about VR than I initially thought. And maybe that was because of my talk, but I like it.
We got the ringer in here. We might as well take advantage of that. So.
Well, you know what stands out in your presentation now, so good testing ground for that. So what I want you to do, I'm leaving with this whiteboard. I got to go to the other breakout room. But I want you to think about those elements of that generational resistance. So maybe I'm not ready. And think about specific ways you could solve that problem. So let's use that as stimulus, right? So what's an idea you can generate to address sort of a lack of consumer skill with new, different, or perhaps complex technology? Is that a good one to leave you with?
Sure.
You can do it. You guys are doing awesome. I'm going to skip to the other room.
Maybe think about to make sure that they're getting enough actual socializing and not all you know, like in games and virtual reality, so that they can build up those skills to start with. I think that's what we would have to do to kind of target and build ideas from there, because it definitely is an issue for sure.
Well, I would think that you can't, every once in a while I'll overhear some discussion. Mind you, I don't try and purposely eavesdrop on my kids' discussion, but at times you have a choice. But I'd once in a while eavesdrop on my kids' discussion, and at times I do find that unless you keep some sort of a monitoring as to where the discussion flows, at times you may find that they start talking about things that maybe you would not want them to be talking about. So there has to be some sort of an anchor, something in there. I agree on that. Yeah.
So it sounds like we're digging further into the build your own concept, and we're getting to the point of like, how do we socialize and monitor social behavior? Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's what we're
Well, stop me if I'm totally making it up.
Yeah.
So I want to, I don't know if you've dealt with any of the prompts yet, but so now you're kind of breaking it down into smaller chunks. So that's great. So let's take that sort of problem that exists with this, I'll go with the monitoring one only because I'm more interested. I'm the facilitator, so I get to take it where I want to go. So we'll park the socialization one for a second, and we'll focus on how do we monitor what they're talking about. Like I know for myself, like I have 3 kids. My oldest is 13. When I come home, like they want their screen time. We actually regulate their screen time pretty heavily, and so they get like a half hour every day, 40 minutes of gaming, and they're all socially based. And part of me is like, what are you doing there? Like, what are you talking now? My oldest is getting into Instagram. What are you looking at there? Like, I know how quickly that goes, right? And how quickly that goes sideways. And I want to help protect him, as long as I possibly can as a dad. So anyway, there's some context. What do we do about monitoring behavior? And this is digging deeper into that same idea, and it might lead to a different idea. So if I'm starting an IDM business in northern Manitoba, I'm going to homeschoolers and I'm going to solve whatever specific problem it is, like amplify your curriculums or have a designed way for a child to self-lead without having to, take a little bit of this curriculum and this curriculum and this curriculum and build your own, which is a reality in that world. But now I want to address that big customer problem where the parent will say, well, how do I know what they're doing? Right? And oftentimes people who choose to homeschool are for sort of those types of reasons. Like, I really want to control the exposure to some sort of outside teaching that doesn't align with my personal beliefs. So how do I monitor when I bring them into the digital world? Let's talk about that a bit. How do we, and we'll do a little bit of a mind map here. So monitor, let's say, digital interaction. Maybe even monitor / regulate. Anything that comes to mind there?
Well, you're going to regulate what you know, the amount of time that they're spending on schooling versus gaming.
Okay.
Or you know, socializing. I mean, kids need to socialize. And the same as if they were in person, you need to know their friends and their parents.
Ooh, I like that. So we need to know their friends and parents. So how do we bring in parents?
I was just going to mention recording. Is when your kids are learning online, is there a way that it could be recorded? So if you want to, you know, check up and see what they've done for the day, it could be.
Yeah,
check
that's
their
great.
history.
Yeah, what if there's scheduled, automated report outs?
Mm-hmm.
Like it just goes live. So whatever you're doing at that moment as the student, as the child, goes live at 2:05. And boom, all of a sudden the parent is there. Hey, how's it going, sweetie? What are you working on? Oh, I see that, you know, and so right away you're in there. And maybe that's randomized. Maybe it's not scheduled, but it's randomized.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's live, would it be like a live teacher avatar so that, you know, they're still in contact with you know, an adult that's, you know, watching over the class of 5 or 10
Yeah.
in person?
Yeah, so what if we build a network? Because I know that's another thing with homeschool families is, you know, so for the socialization reason, often other families will connect. And, you know, if they're, you know, more expertise in a particular area, a particular academic area, that family might help one family out. So what if you build a network? And it's also very pandemic friendly on the short term, right? And I'm starting to say that on the short term because I want to believe for a short term on this already.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, building a network. We only have a couple minutes left. How could this create a new yellow card for us? So this one seems very specific to homeschooling scenario. What's the problem we're solving? We're solving the problem, it sounds like, of kids self-navigating online. And the promise is parents, or if we do this build network idea here, by leveraging a network of homeschooling families, your kids will always be accountable, or, you know, something like that. It's not worded perfectly.
Well, if we're leveraging your family, we're actually working within, I don't know, looking at the blue card, exploration area 2.
Okay, great.
All
Yeah, thanks.
schooling and education programs come from the province, right? So.
Yeah, that's great. And as the other group in breakout room 1 figures out all of our connectivity issues, we bring 2 solutions together. Sounds like, it looks like we're at 10 seconds left here. So I think that brings us to a wrap. We'll see you in the main room.
I was going to pick on Minley.
Sorry, Grant, didn't mean to cut you off there.
That's okay, but I'm glad I finally connected.
Yeah.
But there's definitely got to be a richer conversation, I'll just say.
Okay, but that whole problem that you're talking about, somebody in the beginning, I believe it was the first dude, he talked about a server in a community. So maybe that's the key to, once we get interest, to bring it back.
Yeah, I can tell you what we're trying to do right now, and this will be real quick, and I think it could be interesting to everybody. But in many of our local communities where they do not have good Wi-Fi and do not have good backbone internet, I'll call it. We do have that available through ExploreNet at our schools. So if we can, basically we're working on a concept right now where our interactive digital media facilitator will be in a location where there is good backbone, and they can come to our school and watch him on YouTube, for lack of a better platform, and deliver to the mass with the school's internet at their opportunity to use it. And we're hopeful that that will at least spark an interest where we can have more people demanding more of the importance, to wrap their head around why our interactive digital media is important. And if we don't have people screaming at the community level, then there's no motivation for the administrators of those communities and the politicians to get it done. It's been 10 years we've been talking about this, and it's still no better than the day I joined Frontier.
Right. So back to our little breakout group, when we were talking about how do we get that message out, YouTube, and if they could view that at a community level and have that through a server, like, and have, there's the vehicle to get them to start, have an idea of what's available out there, not only for the kids for training, but for the existing entrepreneur that wants to expand his business or take advantage of COVID, and the new guy. Absolutely. Who has that
Great.
kernel.
I'm going to just jump in here so that we can take the remainder of our time here to wrap our meeting, but I didn't want to interrupt. It sounded like you were kind of on a roll with that idea, and thanks. And it kind of doubled as a bit of a share out too, because we do want to hear on ideas, but if I can open it up to somebody else too, just to share. So now that we took that idea, in some of the groups, we ended up digging deeper into specific problems. In one group, we talked about generational based resistance to new and different technology. In this group, we were talking about monitoring or regulating students on a digital learning platform. So we kind of dug deep, and it may have altered ideas a bit. I don't know what the other groups did, but yeah, I'd love to hear from someone else. What's a standout idea? We've only got a couple minutes, and we're going to throw it back to Oswald to wrap the day.
Well, ours was to optimize the existing digital infrastructure, and that's where we came up with the problem that it would be new and different. It could be generational, it could just be people's familiarity with the technology. Train the trainer was definitely a big one. You have to find those mentors to pass on. We also felt that the content engagement would help, as well as being user-friendly. It had to be intuitive. Really find out what the needs and interests were of the area. We were talking about, orientation for newcomers to the north, whether it's in the healthcare or other industries, they could experience that before. So we really felt the engagement and how it interacted with all users and how that was catered to would really optimize the infrastructure there. And in relation to VR headsets.
Okay, good. So that was a build off of an idea that had come up earlier, where if there's connectivity issues, we were dealing with that blue card around infrastructure. What if we sent preloaded VR into communities, so we didn't have to worry about what connectivity is like? And we sort of kept digging down from there. Good. Thanks for that. Yeah, and I think to give as much time as you need to wrap it up there, Oswald, we'll just say thanks everybody for participating in this and coming up with some awesome ideas. And the CEDF team is going to just kind of gather all of those ideas together and have sort of an actionable idea pipeline. But to end the day, back over to you, Oswald.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ryan. And yeah, we that was quite the experience. And you know what? It does force you to go out of your comfort zone, which is always a good thing. So tomorrow, well, actually for today, this of course wraps up this segment of our online forum. As mentioned to you, we will have information on our website that we've gathered over the course of the last 2 hours. Tomorrow, for those that are joining us, that's our Tourism Opportunities in Northern Manitoba Day. We will have as our keynote speakers Colin Ferguson, who is the CEO and President of Travel Manitoba, and Celeste Devar, who's the owner operator of Earth's Rhythms Experiential Tourism. I do want to once again thank Kristian and Dan for their very in-depth discussion on digital media. As we mentioned, you know what, this is one industry that has so much growth potential in Northern Manitoba, and I can't stress that enough. We have, from what I understand, I think about 90%, as I mentioned on Monday, about 9% of jobs in this industry are being created down south. And I think up north here, we have just as much of the talent pool, and we have just as much of the ideas that we can really get into this industry. And I do understand, of course, we do have our challenges with reliable internet, but as mentioned in one of the blue cards, what can we do with what we have? And I think there's always something that you can do with what you have on hand. And of course, you always look for the long ball strategy. You always look to make sure you get the proper infrastructure in place. But you know what? I think we have a lot of opportunities in that industry, and we will explore some more once we have our final strategic plan completed. That too will be posted onto our website for anyone who wants to go to CEDF.mb.ca. In that, I do want to close off with one final note. I'm going to perhaps ask Chris or Dan if they can maybe talk a little bit about what we are currently doing in the mining industry with the video that's currently being worked on. I don't know, Chris, do you want to quickly touch on that, or Dan? Do you want to?
I'll let Dan. Dan's the ringer expert, so absolutely, I wouldn't want to.
Sure.
So I don't have talking points prepared for this project because I wasn't sure that we were actually going to speak about it, but that's more than okay. We're excited to be kicking off a project together with the Northern Sector Council to focus on mining safety in VR. We're going to be utilizing standalone headsets, so if you were in my breakout session or if you were paying attention during my talk and not sleeping, I'm not sure, I'm not here to judge, then you will know that some of those headsets we've deployed in the past. This will be an offline experience, so we won't be relying on a network connection, but what we will be doing is exposing kids that may be working in the mining industry to different hazards that they might encounter, as well as taking them on a virtual tour of a mine. So we're going to be using this to both do career awareness, but also as a training tool for people in the mining industry to learn about open hole, stored energy, stuff along those lines. So this technology is going to both utilize the 360-degree photos and videos that we've produced in the past for different projects, although we're shooting new content for this one, so maybe I worded that wrong, but as well as 3D interactive game components that will have people put on PPE, experience hazards, and fix them. You know, we don't want them to fall down that hole. But if they fall down the hole in VR, they'll be fine, I swear. So this is a really exciting project that we're just starting, and hopefully everyone here will at some point get to try in the near future.
Great. Thank you, Dan. And sorry for putting you on the spot like that.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. You're the best.
I'm happy to be put on the spot. You can throw me in the spot anytime you want.
Well, I do think that you have the coolest background there, that black hole type of background. I'm not sure that's an astronaut.
It does a really good job of hiding my piles of binders and packaging from different headsets.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, and that will be completed in the early part of 2021. So we look forward to that. In saying that, once again, if you are interested in registering for the rest of our online forums, Wednesday says tourism, Thursday commercial fishing, and Friday would be forestry. Just email Leanne Brown at lbrong@cedf.mb.ca. In saying that, I wish you all an enjoyable balance of your day, and we will talk to you on Wednesday.